This episode brought to you by the Pirated Broadcast Network.
And promoted all that is both positive and negative, until finally man has developed to the point where he recognizes a brother in the other person and becomes positive by his own motivation. The growth of humanity into true mankind is like the alchemical gold which was thrown into the fire until all impurities were separated from the pure gold. On Earth, all social power systems since Atlantis have been led by the Brotherhood of the Snake, which in turn was guided by spiritual and extraterrestrial forces of the Guardians. In short, whether it be monarchy, capitalism, or communism, whichever strived for power and leadership has been spiritually influenced by the sun hierarchies during the Dark Age, and now represents the male materialistic forces. Of course, we have been guided by our religions and powerful leaders during the Dark Age, but these in turn have also been led by spiritual masters. Many people of lower grades of initiation do not even realize that extraterrestrial and cosmic influences of the sun hierarchies have been placed at the top of the pyramid of the lodges. During the Dark Age, sun hierarchies, the Illuminati, are the rulers, accomplished masculine forces, the builders of matter. In the last Golden Age, moon hierarchies, the Luminari, the accomplished feminine cosmic forces, ruled and brought matriarchy. The completed souls of the next cycle unite within themselves the sun and moon, which is symbolically a marriage of mind and matter. The union of man ego and woman soul within a human being leads back to immortality. In the future, the higher self will be a human being on Earth. Christianity and the Templar Order. Each time it was written down, the true revelation of the divine was falsified, because every testament always represents an interpretation of that not experienced. This is how the world religions originated, with all their different sects, which strictly followed dead words to the letter and were misled from generation to generation further away from the truth. After Christ's death, his words were wrongly interpreted also, and in parts purposely falsified. During the first century, great disappointment was felt within the first original Christian congregations, when part of the scriptures were falsely interpreted by the secret Hebrew brotherhoods, who stood on the side of the Romans. The Atlantean gospel of the life of the Essenes, Essena, which still includes the teachings of reincarnation, but excludes any interpretation of evil, led through the centuries to the strong division between heaven and hell. Peter, in his last days, recognized what had happened and asked to be hanged by his feet, symbolizing the world's confused situation. Back then, all his followers were only comforted by the knowledge that one day in the future, just before the return, they would be reborn in order to inherit the world.
To summarize what the Bible says about the coming of Jesus Christ, one could go to the words of Jesus himself in Matthew chapter 24. This chapter is often seen as a synopsis, you might say, of the Apocalypse or the writings of the Apostle John. And in this particular chapter, Jesus outlined very clearly how he will come. He will come visibly, personally, as a real person. He will come in the midst of noise, so it'll be an audible event, and a very dramatic, powerful and glorious event. He said he's going to return with all his glory, the glory of his Father, the glory of the holy angels. It will be a dramatic event.
For a long time, Christianity and the secret lodges of the Brotherhood had entered the European royal courts, where various knightly brotherhoods went to look for their roots in the Holy Land. Crusaders from all the European countries started on their journey to the Holy Land. Some of these knights had not been initiated by the Freemason Brotherhood, who had already at the time total control over the Vatican. They were searching for the truth because they disagreed with the activities of the head of the church. Especially during the 11th century, German and Baltic crusaders traveled to Syria, where an old master called the Elder of the Days told them the whole truth about the Atlantean brother war of the priesthood castes. The Babylonian stone plates revealed to them the destruction of the Aramaic Brotherhood by the Hebrew Brotherhoods and the whole truth about the falsification of the Gospel of the Essenes and Christ's message. This led to an immediate split from Christianity, and a new order of Templars was founded. After their return, the Templars used their newfound knowledge of Atlantis and built the Grail castles throughout all European countries. They introduced the money system and enjoyed a high reputation. Later, they were persecuted by the church. The old lodges followed, and the Inquisition began. Some of the knights came to Vienna, Heilig and Kreuz, where they established several monasteries and castles on sacred geomantic energy sites, where they kept part of the knowledge and scriptures. For centuries, part of the Templars' knowledge was hidden in and around Vienna. After the Inquisition, the old brotherhoods again seized power in a new disguise. Part of the Freemasons and of the Illuminati were directly evolved from this Templar brotherhood. At the turn of the century, there was a monk in Vienna, a member of the Templar order, who did not quite fit into the picture of the brotherhood. He left the brotherhood and the monastery near Vienna and took the name of Lance von Liebenfels. He later founded the new Templar order.
Der Lanz von Liebenfels war vorher Ordensgeistlicher in Heilig.
Previously, Lanz von Liebenfels had been a spiritual member of the Order of the Holy Cross and had written a work on a knight statue which stands on a monkey. This philosophy of one who stands on a monkey had an extraordinary impact on him, and this was also the core of the ideology.
Hat ihm also einen unerhörten Eindruck gemacht, und das war auch der Kern der Ideologie. Und zwar, meinte, dass dieser Ritter, der oben steht,
He believed that this knight who stands on top is a Templar, and that the Templars, the noble or heroic knights, were supposed to be in opposition to the ordinary humanity, which is represented by the monkey and which has to be crushed. Indeed, there would be a godlike human race and an animal human race. One should say in opposition to the animal human race.
Lance von Liebenfels mingled his Templar knowledge with the Bhagavad Gita translations, which describe the battle of the gods of Atlantis. Later, he taught specifically that the Aryan race of the Brotherhood was the god-human beings, and that the Chandalan were the godless beings. They were involved in endless battles, as mentioned in the Indian mysticism. His worldview was that the Hebrew Brotherhood was the direct descendant of the godless, which suppressed the world of the Aryan gods during the Dark Age. Another interpretation was that the Nordic and Germanic people were the only descendants of the Atlantean Aryan gods, and that their origin could only be identified by their blonde hair and blue eyes.
Ja, also Lanz von Liebenfels war ja dieser grundlegenden Überzeugung, dass also die Weltgeschichte bewegt wird.
Lanz von Liebenfels was fundamentally convinced that world history arose from the battle between the races, between the noble, heroic and godlike human beings and the animal beings, and in between there were even some combination of both. Thus, through a cleansing process and through the slavery and oppression of the so-called lower human beings, a godly era would appear, if the race conflict was to be won, in Lanz's view.
Indeed, this is the root of racism. Since